Can you explain how to determine which values should be chosen for m and p when factoring a polynomial of the form ax squared plus bx plus c? This trinomial is different from what we were doing because now the lead coefficient isn't 1 anymore. For this trinomial, the lead coefficient is 7. You still want to always check for a greatest common factor. You may not always have one, but in this particular problem, if my coefficients are 7, 29, and 4, and there's not a number bigger than 1 that goes into those three numbers, then I don't have a greatest common factor. So I'll immediately just start factoring the problem. Now, anytime a trinomial can be factored, it can be factored in this form. It'll be x, and it could be plus or minus something, so we'll just say m times x plus or minus something, and we'll just say it's n, okay? So this is where it's going to differ from what we were doing. We're going to take that first coefficient, 7, and that last coefficient of 4, and we're going to multiply those two numbers together. So 7 times 4 is 28. So since 7 times 4 is 28, now we're going to find the factors of 28. And those factors would be 1 times 28, 2 times 14, and 4 times 7. Those are your factors of 28. Now, which one of these pairs of factors would add up to 29? Well, that would have to be 1 times 28. So we're going to use 1 times 28 to rewrite this trinomial. So we're going to rewrite this trinomial now as 7x squared. And now, instead of writing 29x, we're going to use 1 and 28. So we're going to write 7x squared plus 1x plus 28x, and then we're going to write plus 4. So what I did was I found the factors of 28, which added up to 29, happens to be 1 and 28, and I used those two terms as in place of that 29x. Now, since this polynomial has 4 terms, we can do factor by grouping. So let's take the first two terms, 7x squared plus 1x. The greatest common factor for those first two terms would just be the letter x, because 7 and 1 don't have a common factor other than 1. And if we factor x out of those two terms, we're left with 7x plus 1. Now we'll take the last two terms, and we will factor out a greatest common factor. Well, here the greatest common factor would be 4, and since it's positive, we'll write plus 4. And if we factor 4 out of each of those terms, that would leave us with 7x plus 1. So now, if we look at this blue group and this red group, we notice that both groups have a greatest common factor of 7x plus 1. So when we go to write our answer, our greatest common factor is 7x plus 1. And if we factored 7x plus 1 out of the blue group, the only thing that we would be left with is x. And if we factor 7x plus 1 out of the red group, the only thing that we're left with is 4. So the answer to this problem, if we factor 7x squared plus 29x plus 4, our final answer would be 7x plus 1 times x plus 4. Now I want you to take this example problem, try to factor it just like we did the first problem. 5x squared plus 13x plus 6.